I would like now to go ahead and formally introduce Pat Shannan. I've known Pat for quite a long time. Consider him to be a dear friend and a dear Christian brother. He, too, like Jim Marrs, is a researcher extraordinaire, a man who could have had such an easier path in life if he had chosen it, but instead, many years ago, chose to follow like a bloodhound the trail of truth and to learn so much about subjects that are forbidden or taboo in this day and time. He's a gifted writer, researcher. He has written numerous books that, again, nobody else has written books comparable to what Pat has done, the subjects that he's dealt with and the way that he has done it. He's the assistant editor of the American Free Press and a regular contributor to that great paper. And he's also a very, very informative speaker and lecturer. And I would like to ask Pat if you could come at this time and share your information with us. Pat Shannan.
Thank you. Good morning.
Will you get some? You got volume in this mic? And clip that on the bell.
Tasting, 1, 2. I put on this. I moved recently and grabbed a blazer out of my closet that I knew had, you know, worked fine and fit me. And I realized when I pulled the papers in the pocket out of it, I had worn it once since it had been clean. It was last August when I attended a friend's funeral, and there was the thing brochure. And anyway, it doesn't quite fit so well anymore. So I guess you could say I've had a good year. I went to the doctor and he said, "You're overweight." And I said, "Well, I want a second opinion." He said, "Okay, you're ugly too." Anyway, for comfort, I'll let you see my hangover because I'll be a lot more comfortable speaking this way. I know this is a 911 conference, and certainly we have covered that, what you saw this morning, far better than any other publication in the country. I'm confident of that. But I couldn't begin to attempt to follow that talk that you just heard this morning. That was certainly one of the most comprehensive things ever done on 911 as far as I'm concerned, and Jim Marrs has really done his homework. But Rick asked me if I wouldn't talk about some of the other things that have gone in history and in my lifetime and even before, that maybe to bring some of the skeptics up to date, as Jim Marrs did, on you know, these things are planned very, very well in advance. One of my favorite quotes from the 911 thing is from this engineer chief professor wingding at one of the New Mexico engineering schools. His name was Dr. Van Romero. And he was on 911, was on CNN on the afternoon of September 11th, just hours after the incident, and was quoted as saying on camera that a long quote on why this was an inside job, or at least there were demolition charges inside the building. And he said, you know, and it looked like a demolition because that's exactly what it was. Now, that, of course, inadvertently went out to the world on CNN because, you know, if you ever want to know what's going on one of these new catastrophes that comes up, listen to the street reporters about the first 3 or 4 or 5 hours because they're still telling the truth. They're not being edited out yet. So that was what was happening on CNN that afternoon. And about a week later, that of course was a Tuesday afternoon, and I believe it was about the following Monday that Dr. Van Romero comes out with a new quote, and of course it was blown all over the place, saying that he had really no evidence that it was a demolition, and he said, "I was mistaken." And I said to myself, yeah, Doc, the only mistake you made was opening your big mouth. Because somebody with dark glasses and a trench coat came to see you, and you got your story straight over the weekend. But that's the kind of power they wield. Now, Jim talked about what happens to these congressmen, and Rick talked about the local guy here who's now a big shot TV star. The method that is used was one that was purloined from us a long, long time ago, and is called the power of legal tender. You see, once they stole our lawful money, the 1792 Coinage Act defines a dollar. Did you know that a dollar is not a piece of paper? Did you know that it is a measurement? A dollar is a measurement of gold and silver, and I know many of you in this room probably know that. But the Coinage Act defined it as 25.8 grains of gold or 371.25 grains of silver. So in those days, in the 1790s and 1800s, when if you walked in a grocery store and said, give me $1 of silver or give me $1 of gold, they'd know exactly what you're talking about. But if you said, give me $1, they would look at you like you're some kind of idiot. It would be like today if you walked in the supermarket and said, give me a quart. Or at the service station. Or you walked in the bar and said, give me a pint. What do you want, a quart of what? Because that's what a dollar is. A dollar is a measurement. So they managed, over the years of the 20th century, after the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1913, the first doors opened in early 1914, and they pledged to our grandparents that there would always be money backed by gold and silver on all the paper dollars that they created. Well, that was the very first lie they ever told us about it after they got the doors open, because there was never more than 40% in the beginning. And then those requirements were reduced to 25% very shortly. And then as recently as 1980, when I kind of began my research into that, it was 5% requirements, the fractional reserve requirement, they called it. So that meant that the bank only had to have $5 on deposit in order to lend 100. Now what's going to happen when, I mean, is that diluting the milk or what? And so today we're talking about creating 700 billion more to throw in the milk. So you're going to watch the total collapse right now of the so-called dollar. But it was planned a long, long time ago. And they have used this to wield power. And people talk about, very, very educated people on this subject still want to talk about taxpayer money. I want to help you understand this morning how there is no taxpayer money and how you don't pay taxes on anything. Now, it's a great term, and they like to keep that term out there. So you can get upset when they say they're going to do this, and oh, that's a taxpayer money. No, it isn't. It's government money. In 1914 they began, and then after World War II they created this victory tax, or during World War II I mean, they created the victory tax to allow this little extraction coming out of your salary. And then when the boys came home from the war, they said, what is this? Oh, that's, 1% or something they take out, for your income tax withholding, and oh, 1%, I can handle that. And that's the way that charade began. So in I have a 1928 dollar. It's large. It's about twice, about this size, about the size of that brochure you just got. That's about the size of what that dollar was in 1928. And up here in large print, that even I could read without my glasses, it said, this is legal tender and is redeemable in lawful money at any Federal Reserve Bank or United States Treasury. So this note is legal tender for all debts public and private, if you want the full quote. Now, in 28, you could take that to the bank at any time and you could get your lawful money. It's redeemable in lawful money. What is lawful money? Defined many times in the U.S. Code. It was defined in the 1792 Coinage Act. USC Title 12-152 says, the terms lawful money or lawful money of the United States shall be construed to mean gold and silver coin of the United States. That's still on the books.